Hi, Dr. Heather here from Wellspring Chiropractic Lifestyle Center. Today we're talking about raising healthy kids, what every parent needs to know. So let me start my screen share so you can see my slides, and we will be off and running. There we go. All right. So I just recently found a photograph of me and my three brothers and my four cousins, all about this age, lined up like this in my grandmother's backyard. And it brought back so many memories to me. But that was when I was this age, so little. And my journey with being a pediatric chiropractor started actually when I was about 13 years old. And if you're okay, I'd like to share a little bit of that journey with you. So here we go. This is a photograph I'm about to show you of when I was 16 years old. So the story actually starts 3 years earlier than that, when I was 13. And I was pretty much raised in a conventional way up until that time. And then my dad switched careers and he became a chiropractor. And he came home on his first vacation and I had strep throat. And I don't know if you've ever had strep throat, but you know how much it hurts, you can hardly swallow anything. Well, he adjusted me and I got better really fast. And then when I was 16 years old, about the time of this picture here, when he was just graduating, I still had not started my menstrual cycle yet. And I was worried about whether or not I was even going to get to have any kids, because all my girlfriends were just talking about the names they were going to give to their kids. And I was participating in the conversation, but I was worried. And like, what's wrong with my body that I haven't started this yet? And my dad adjusts me, and 2 weeks later, my cycle starts. So I'm thinking, this is amazing. Chiropractic is really incredible. It helps your immune system. It helps your hormonal system. And it was then that I really got started studying everything about natural healing that I could. And although I wasn't adjusting my friends, I still considered myself their pediatric chiropractor. So anytime they had anything going on, I was always telling them they needed to get adjusted, and I was coaching them on everything I was learning about natural healing. Well, I'm not sure they ever listened, but that was when my journey really began. And at chiropractic school, I loved the courses on obstetrics and pediatrics. And when I graduated, I continued to study pediatrics in postgraduate programs as well. So when my own daughter was born, and by the way, how does my story go? In fact, my body it did work, and I did get to have a daughter. And so when it was time to raise her, first things first, I never took her for granted, because I remembered the time when I was worried about whether I would even get to have kids. And so, there was no way I was going to be raising her in any kind of conventional model, because I knew too much. I had been studying too much. And so, well, what did I know? That's what I want to share with you today. Growing up, both my parents were school teachers. And so we're going to start with a pop quiz. Here we go. So first question is, which nation spends more money on healthcare than any other? Any guesses out there? Yeah, you got it right. The United States of America. And back in 2018, we were already spending $2 trillion a year on healthcare. And by 2021, we were up to $4.1 trillion. So we had almost doubled it in just a few years. And since COVID, I know that it's even higher, but I don't know the exact amounts, but it is high. And what does that come out to? Well, at least pre-COVID, that came out to $12,530 per person spent on healthcare every year. So that could actually make or break a family as far as their budgeting goes. But what if we were to invest in our health and take that money, and instead of spending it on crisis and chronic disease, we spent some of it on how to be well and how to raise our children well? That's what I want you to get from tonight, is what are the valuable things you can be investing in, whether it's money or time or focus or energy. We all have limited resources, so let's make sure the choices that we do make count. Now, here's the second question. Who takes 75% of all the prescription drugs in the world, but takes up less than 5% of the population? If you guess the United States, you're right. And here's the third and final question. Where does the US rate in the healthiest nations rating by the World Health Organization? And this is, they had a scale of 0 to 40. And at one point when I was giving these workshops, it was 40. We were dead last. And in 2023, the latest ranking is still 34th. So we're spending the most of any other country, and yet we're 34th on that list. Something's got to change. We need a better way. And, you know, if that's true, and if that's what's been happening year after year, are we setting our kids up for a healthy future? Let's take a look. So the question that I think is important to answer is, how do our kids rank in health? So not just how our country ranks to compare to other countries, but let's dial this in. Let's really look closely here, because when we look at the stats, this comes from World Population Review, and it actually ranks in with the US kids. Our health is getting worse over the last 10 to 15 years. And when I dialed in and I actually looked at Vermont, Vermont is rated as the healthiest state overall, but our kids in 2018 were 10th in ratings for health. And in 2021, we went up to 4th, and currently we are 3rd in the country as far as kids' health goes. And I was very excited to see that trend was moving in the right direction. The overall rating, however, for well-being in general, Vermont rates 12th on the list. So, and in 2018, we were 8th. So we are tanking in overall well-being, and it's only a matter of time that upward swing of health is actually going to start to drop again, because our environment is definitely something that's going to impact our kids' health. And so here are the details here. So this is in 2023 or 22 actually data. Overall child well-being was at a 5, and the kids' overall well-being was a 12, and then it went to 2018 it went to 8, and now it's at 5. So we are doing better there. With the economy, we're still at a 12. With education, we're at 5. With health, we are at 3 right now. And family and community, we've stayed strong at 3 over all of these years. So that is a really important part of the Vermont culture, the Vermont lifestyle, is we do have pretty strong family and community, and that really does count. That is important. So children's health shapes the health throughout life. So the health you have as a child is going to have an impact on the health you have as an adult. And this were some studies that just showed that the percentage of US children with less than optimal health ranged between 7 and 23%. So 7% was in the state of Vermont. So we had the best ratings there. And experts have concluded that medical care and genes actually play a relatively minor role compared with the influence of the physical and social conditions in which children grow up. So higher level parents' education and healthier behaviors by the parents actually do make an impact on the health of a child as it grows up into adulthood. And in the United States during 2003, 15% of children ages 17 or younger had less than optimal health. So a child's health is powerfully shaped by the environment in which she or he lives, learns, and plays, and community and family actually matter quite a bit. Now, I want to share with you the most disturbing quote, the most disturbing 2 data points that I ever had encountered up to that point. The first one was 1 in 2 American children is diagnosed with a chronic illness. Now, back when I was growing up, I think it was, maybe 1 in 10,000 kids had some sort of a chronic illness. It was like 12% of kids had chronic illness when I was growing up. But now it's 51.4% of children have a chronic illness. So when you think about it, I mean, when I went to school, we ate peanut butter and jelly every single day. Nobody had a peanut allergy. I mean, maybe a few kids had some other sort of allergy. Maybe there was one kid in the school that had asthma. I remember there was one kid that I knew that had juvenile diabetes. But nowadays, I mean, they stock in the schools cubbies for the medications for the kids, for the EpiPens and the ADHD medications and everything else. They literally have cubbies for the medications. Like, we need a better way. This was the other one that was very disturbing to me. People have never been sicker. For the first time in the history of man, children born after the year 2000 are not expected to live as long as their parents. And this comes right from the CDC. They discovered this trend by 2009. They saw that it was not a fluke, that it was a trend, and that our kids were getting sicker and sicker. And the scariest thing to me about this is how it's become normalized. You know, parents look around them like, a lot of kids have these allergy things. I guess that's just normal now. And so that is not normal. Allergies, asthma, eczema, digestive trouble, you know, they're common, but they are not healthy normal. And I don't know about you, but I was very disturbed by this. And I know that, you know, when we see these kind of data points, sometimes our eyes kind of glaze over, and it's just too big of a problem to actually even think about. Like, what can I do about it? Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook here tonight, because where does this data come from? It comes from people that we know, people right here in our community. Maybe right now you have a friend, a coworker, a neighbor, a family member who has kids that are sick. And even if they're thinking it's the normal sick, they're sick. And maybe your kids are sick too. Maybe you are looking for a better way as well. So that is what I want to share with you. And basically, if we just keep doing what we've always done, we're just going to keep getting what we've been getting. And I love these, you know, expressions of truth that come up. So we need a better way, and that better way has to start with our belief system about it. If we believe that this is all just normal now, then we're not going to do anything about it. But if we believe that this is abnormal and we need a better way, we're going to look in a different place. So right now, I want to start sharing with you 5 key factors that will influence a child's health. And 4 of them are influencing them, but one of them is what controls health. And I want to make sure you understand that one especially, but all of them are important. So here's some premises just to lay some groundwork here. The first premise is this: you are designed to be healthy. Now, people say, well, what about my genes? Well, I just want you to know that when they went looking at the human genome, they thought, we're so complex that we're going to find, you know, more genes in our genome than any other species. And it turns out that no, we don't have that many different from a fruit fly, in fact. And so they actually only found 20,000 genes, approximately, maybe 25, right? 25,000 genes. And what they also found, and I've been studying I've been attending genetics conferences, and what always strikes me is, as much as they want to try and pin certain genes to certain defects or ways that it affects our health, what still comes shining through is that 99.96% of us actually have the perfect genome to express perfect health, as long as we have the right environment over time. Now, that is key. We have to actually be making sure that we create the right environment, because if we don't do that, then we're going to start to have things interfering with that optimal expression. And so it comes back to our lifestyle. So what could be interfering with the optimal expression of your child's genome? Interference can only come from 2 things, either toxicities or deficiencies, or maybe both. And that is what can then lead to dis-ease, which then starts to create a state of disease. So it all comes down to our environment that's going to cause the gene to either upregulate or downregulate. And so that environment could be one of toxicities and deficiencies, or it could be something that was optimizing our genetic potential. And that comes down to our lifestyle. So environment and lifestyle are all about the decisions that we make. Now, sometimes the environment we don't have control over. You know, you can't hold your breath if you live in LA, right? And so I want you to recognize that lifestyle is what we have complete control over. And so if we can get the lifestyle right, then that's going to give us enough robustness that we may be able to actually manage the rest of the environment that we can't change. So we are going to have optimum expression of health. The second one here is that your body is intelligent. Think about it. You came from 2 tiny cells that you can't even see to make one single fertilized cell. And then 270 days later, there you are, an entire human being. And when you think about how, we're going to breathe 10,000 breaths today, our heart is going to bump in our chest 10,000 times today as it's pumping the blood around our body. Our digestion, we're going to eat some food and turn it into us, right? And if you cut your finger, right, whether you put the Band-Aid on or not, your body's going to heal that up. It's going to grow more finger cells there, not nose cells, finger cells. Exactly right every time, because your body is intelligent and you don't have to think about any of this. That's how smart your body is, right? And then, we think about children, it's amazing. Like every milestone that a child hits, it's so exciting. It's so fantastic. You go from when they're babies and then they start to pick their head up, and the next thing you know, they're taking their first steps, and then they're uttering their first words, and then they're starting to understand and communicate with you, and then they're running, and next thing you know, they're just off and going. So, then we turn into adults and we start to think that our bodies are just broken and aging and wearing out. Like, what happened to that vibrant life force, that smart body that grew us from 2 little cells to 40 quadrillion cells in 270 days, right? It still is, that intelligence is still in our bodies, and it never leaves us until our last breath. So that intelligence is there right now. Now, your nervous system is the master system. All the intelligence in all of those cells courses across the nervous system. The nervous system is what networks all that intelligence in every single cell all together, so that we are an intelligent organism that can then respond to our environment. And what is it that protects our nervous system? It's the spine. The skull protects the brain, right? The cranium protects the brain. And then the spinal cord is protected by the spinal column. And so your spine is your lifeline, because this is the suit of armor that's protecting your nervous system. And the brain is controlling everything that happens in the body, but it has to get the messages down through the spinal cord, out through the nerves to go to every cell and back again. And as long as that happens without interference, you get to be healthy. But if anything disturbs that flow of messages, then we're going to start to see dis-ease and breaking down of function in the body. Now, this 5th concept is really crucial to understand here. Modern life is unnaturally stressful. We have engineered our life to do everything that we would need to do to create more and more dis-ease. So we're way too sedentary. We've engineered movement out of our lives. Is it any wonder why we have so much sickness, disease, and sleeping problems? We put food into our bodies that didn't even exist 100 years ago, and we still call it food. Stress is up. Stress is way up. And now in the last decade or so, we've added another whole component of stress that's called social stress, that is social media stress, right? It was hard enough growing up to be a teenager. I remember how stressful that was. This generation is in trouble. And we've abandoned our natural design. I mean, when I was a kid, my brothers and I, we got into mischief outside, playing outside, right? Not through social media, right? And now we've had this COVID lockdown era that we've just come through. And, I don't know if you remember that, but, you were spending a lot more time with your kids than ever before, right? But it wasn't vacation. It was a workcation or a schoolcation, right? Man, that was hard when you had to not only try to get your job done and also raise your family, but now you were a teacher as well, right? So that was so much stress that we added. And so would you all agree that stress is up? And the tech stress component we have to identify, because it may be one of the biggest stresses that we encounter, especially for our kids. Do you see this getting better anytime soon, right? I think the stress is just on a trajectory right now. And so we just have to do everything we can to maximize our adaptability at this point. So when we think about all the different systems in the body, we have our respiratory system for breathing. We have our circulatory system for pushing blood around the body. We have our digestive system for handling food. We have our musculoskeletal system for moving our body around. And then we have a system that allows us to cope with stress. Do you know what system that is? It's our nervous system. Our nervous system is what allows us to deal with stress, because our nervous system is what perceives the world and then responds to it and tells all those other systems what to do. So when we perceive a stress, our nervous system is going to tell the digestive system to do one thing, our muscles to do another thing, our respiration to do another thing, our cardiovascular system to do another thing. The nervous system is the master control of every other system in the body. And so my job as your chiropractor is to keep your nervous system clear from interference so that your body can handle the stress load readily and appropriately, or as readily and appropriately as possible. And then just keep moving in the direction of getting better and better at that, healthier and stronger and more adaptable. Now, when it comes to kids, having a clear nervous system means having healthy development. And so natural development, it all matters. All the ways that our kids are developing, it all matters. So when we go, all the way to the beginning and even before the beginning, when it comes to raising healthy kids, we tend to forget that what we do before we conceive actually matters when it comes to raising healthy kids. And so I'm not going to dive deep into that in this presentation. That's another topic for its own, but I do want to just touch on it briefly. And again, not to judge anything, but just so that you can understand and so that you can take steps to reconcile things that you may not have done that have now added more stress into the system for your kids. So if we want our kids to have the best shot at a healthy life, we need to be thinking about mom's nutrition before she ever conceives. And then, of course, we have to ensure that she's taking proper care of herself during the pregnancy, good prenatal vitamins, a healthy balanced diet, reducing stress, maintaining movement, avoiding unnecessary toxin exposures. Birth is arguably one of the most important factors when developing a healthy immune system. And so vaginal deliveries with little to no interference are going to allow for the most beneficial exchange of flora between mom and baby, mom and the baby's body. So that baby, when it comes through the birth canal, it's going to be flooded and surrounded by the vaginal flora of the mother, which is now going to populate that baby's system and get it moving in the right direction. And that's what then starts to build a strong immune system for the baby, is that microbiome that's developed that starts in the birth process. And if for any reason the baby can't get exposure to that vaginal flora because of a C-section, for example, it's definitely recommended to make sure they get a pediatric probiotic if they don't get some of that vaginal flora exposure right after birth. And then when it comes to breastfeeding, breast is best when it comes to feeding our kids to get them started in a strong way. And there are so many benefits for both mom and baby. But perhaps the greatest one is for the immune system boost that the baby gets from breastfeeding. And I'm going to show you something in just a moment here, but let me finish up the other pieces here. Reducing the amount of toxins that the baby's exposed to, of course, that's going to be important. And looking very closely at vaccines, that's a very important decision to make, because actually many parents are not aware of how many toxins are coming along with the vaccines. And if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those and give you the data on that. Some research that you can consider so that you can make your best choice for you and your family. Really, we just want to let kids be kids. And we want to stop sanitizing every single thing and being afraid to let them just play and explore. They can't build up their immune systems if we never get them exposed to any germs. And this is if we are doing that, if we're making a hyper clean environment, we're actually setting that kid up to have developing allergies and asthma later in life. Remember that the body is smart, and fever is a really important part of natural development. Pediatricians that are informed, they know that there's a phrase they use. It's called 103 by 3. 103 by 3. And it means that every child, by the time they're 3 years old, must experience a 103-degree fever in order to trigger the immune system and the nervous system to be integrated, so that for the rest of their life, they have a efficiently functioning neuroimmune system. So fevers are really important for children to experience. And actually, stopping fevers is actually interfering with what the nervous system is, what the immune system is trying to do. So we really want to let those fevers run. And I do want to assure you that babies with febrile seizures are not at risk for future seizures in their life. So sometimes that's something that happens that can be a bit scary. But what we find is if you keep them hydrated and if you can give them a little extra calcium, then that's one of the things that will naturally allow the body to get what it needs, so it doesn't have to prolong the fever. So when we have a fever, it causes the cells to vibrate at a higher level because of the higher temperature. And that allows the bone cells to be liberated to liberate calcium. So then the system can be flooded with calcium. And when our immune system is working hard, it actually needs more calcium. So that's one of the things that can help. And then that way, if the fever comes down with calcium, it's because your body has what it needs. You're not artificially lowering the fever and interfering with that process. And so teething, just look at teething. That baby is putting everything it can into its mouth to try and, work with the teeth that are coming in. But as it's doing that, it's also exposing itself to its environment in a more and more diverse way. So letting kids play in the dirt, letting them pick up things, not toxic things, but things with natural amounts of dirt on it, that actually builds their microbiome diversity and makes them healthier. So let them play in the dirt. Yeah, fantastic. Let them teethe on a carrot that they pulled out of the garden. So again, just allowing them to go through the natural state of development. And just getting back to our premise that healthy is normal, sick is abnormal. It's normal to be healthy. You're designed to be healthy, and the body is hardwired to heal and survive. And your immune system is a critical part of this design and objective. And we are born with this incredible operating system, a software-like intelligence that has been passed down for thousands of generations before us of successful human beings. It's truly a remarkable inheritance that we bring from our ancestors. But we're also designed to require exposure to challenges in our environment in order to train and develop the immune system. So that is so important. And the research, because of antibiotic resistance that's happening with the overuse of antibiotics, research is predicting by 2050, we might actually lose 10 million kids to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So let your kids get into the dirt so they can build their own robustness and their immune system gets stronger. I want you to see this. This just goes back to this idea of breastfeeding and how it is the best start for the immune system for a child. So if you look at, these are two bags of pumped breast milk, and the regular one is on the left side. The right side is breast milk that was pumped the morning after having spent the night nursing a sick baby. And you can just see that brilliant design of that baby and mama co-created this perfect antidote to the sickness the baby was experiencing. So the mother, as she was nursing that sick baby, changed what the ingredients were in her breast milk. So it was filled with all of the antibodies and the immune system pieces that baby needed that very day. It's a fantastic design. Now, unnatural development also matters. So it is interesting that by the age of 20, the average American child has received 17 courses of antibiotics. 2/3 of children have already received antibiotics by the time they're 1 year old. And to top that off, most American babies are given an antibiotic immediately following birth. And this was a historical practice that was designed to protect newborns from eye infections if the mother had gonorrhea. But now it's just a regular practice, and it doesn't even matter the status of the mother. And that is something that is so easy to test in the mother. So you really can be sure whether or not the mother has gonorrhea. And so you can avoid putting the antibiotics in their eyes. Not only that, but the diversity of the microbial communities, once there is antibiotic use, it doesn't actually return to normal until approximately 2 years after a dose of antibiotics. Now, that's so important because when we look at how often children are getting antibiotics, they're getting antibiotics every 1.5 to 1.8 years. And that means they haven't recovered before the next round of antibiotics is given to them. It's so important. Now, C-sections, right? C-sections, there's a couple things that are a problem with C-sections. They go around the natural exposure to the mother's normal bacteria flora. And also there's something about the struggle of the vaginal delivery that actually helps to stimulate the immune system development as well. So those two things are key. When we look at formula feeding, this again is really important because it can interfere with the bonding and the hormonal benefit to the mother, as well as the bonding to the baby. And the formula doesn't have that crucial immune system boosters that we saw on the last slide there. So yeah, formula feeding can be a problem. And then if we look at other types of interference, like the antibiotics or other medications, even vaccination would be in this category. A child's immune system is designed to require regular battles with common germs and pathogens to train a healthy and normal immune response. And this benefit is the natural design, and it's absolutely necessary for a baby to develop a strong immune system for life. Just think of it as like basic training for a soldier. And this type of developmental interference trades natural short-term acute childhood illness for chronic lifelong conditions like asthma and allergies. The rates of both of these have tracked upwards significantly, historically matching the increase in antibiotic use and the increase in vaccination schedules. And it's literally handicapping a healthy immune system development. So there's something called the hygiene hypothesis. Basically, we've just become clean freaks. And when we over sanitize everything from the child's birth process to the home environment to the food sources, it dramatically reduces the natural exposure to bacteria, viruses, and molds that we were meant to have, that our kids were meant to have. This is all part of the natural design. And as a consequence, children are left with untrained neuroimmune responses, and they lack the critical normal flora that is going to serve and protect them for their life. So a baby is actually training for life in the first 3 years. And, you know, the immune system, it's actually like a learning device. And at birth, it's kind of like a computer with hardware and software, but not very much data. And then additional data has to be supplied during the first few years of life through contact with microorganisms from other humans and the natural environment. And if these inputs are inadequate or inappropriate, the regulatory mechanisms of the immune system can fail. And as a result, the system attacks not only house dust and food allergens, resulting in allergic diseases, but it also is attacking other innocuous targets like pollen. And so, in short, our kids are being put at greater risk for long-term atopic disorders when we follow the guidelines and the lifestyle that we're showing here. So let's just take a moment to dive a little bit deeper and unpack specifically understanding the coronavirus as well. So remember that the coronavirus may be contagious to everybody, but it's only dangerous to certain segments of our population. And some of you may already be familiar with the R0 rating, which indicates how contagious a disease is. It's called the R0 because it's referred to the reproduction number. And so it kind of determines how an infection is transmitted to new people, and then it reproduces itself and then it gets transmitted some more. So flu has a 1.4 R0 number, and corona has a 1.9. So it is more contagious than the flu. However, it's not the same in its dangerousness. And so it turns out that children have a very, very low rate of danger. They actually have very strong immune systems for this. And it's more the elderly or those with comorbidities that are the immunocompromised that will have a worse outcome from it. So the lesson to this is you do not want to be immunocompromised. And so that will put you at greater risk. And there are things you can do to start doing and things you can do to stop doing that are going to change your risks for COVID or any other big pandemic virus that comes along. And so a lot of the media was talking about what we call outside in best practices for disease mitigation, but they were not talking about health building practices, which is the idea of health coming from the inside out. So we really just have to put our energies and our focus and our time into how do we reset healthy behavior patterns. That's how we're going to build health. So that is the way out of this, is we just need to keep building health. Stress causes lower immunity. Pain causes lower immunity. The use of NSAIDs, of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like Tylenol, ibuprofen, Advil, Motrin, like those kinds of things will lower immunity. And there were even cases where when they saw children dying from COVID, they definitely had comorbidities, and they also may have had the use of NSAIDs or the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories and that sort of thing. And the flu shot also, the Department of Defense had a study showing there was an increased risk of COVID in soldiers who had the flu shot. So let's just take a look and put this all in perspective. Our bodies have actually encountered coronavirus before. And I want to show you that. But first, this study that shows that there's that increased risk of respiratory virus infections associated with having a flu shot, basically. And then infectious diseases that have flu-like symptoms, you can see coronavirus is one of those that has flu-like symptoms, but it's one of many that have flu-like symptoms. And so building health is the way to address all of these concerns, because we may be exposed to any and all of these at any point in time. And if we have a strong immune system, then we're going to weather this quite easily. So there are 5 vital factors that affect the immune function during the school year specifically. And so, what is it that's different during the school year compared to summer? It's not that there are more germs, which is what a lot of people think. And it's not that there are new germs either. And it's not that there are crowded spaces. That is not the reason why immune system seems to be more challenged during the school year. No, our kids get exposed to germs all summer long. What we need to realize is that it's not the germ, but it's the terrain. There was a 19th century physiologist whose name was Claude Bernard, and he postulated that sickness was not caused by bacteria, but rather by the human being's internal environment. The terrain, he called it. The terrain is everything, he wrote. The germ is nothing. The presence of bacteria, he maintained, is a symptom of an unhealthy environment. So the question becomes, how can we build our immunity so that we're not prone to illness? How can we nourish our terrain? And these are the 5 vital factors. 4 of them influence the immune system, and 1 of them controls the immune system. So when we look at these 4 vital factors, we see that it includes nutrition, and diets can either be toxic or deficient. Sleep, like not getting enough sleep or stressing too much, that it impacts sleep. Posture, we're going to look at screens and backpacks, both affecting posture of children. Movement or the lack of movement, not playing outside enough, means lower vitamin D and less stimulation and less interaction. And then there's a neurological component to the immune system as well, subluxation. So let's unpack each one of these. School nutrition, it is toxic and deficient. And there's a poison that's called glyphosate that is used, it's called Roundup. It's used to kill weeds and to kill as an herbicide for plants like crops, like corn and that kind of thing. But it's also used to get rid of dandelions in lawns and things like that. Well, they did a study of school lunches recently, and they found that more than 95% of school lunches had toxic levels of glyphosate found in them. Because glyphosate is something that it doesn't wash off. You can't cook it out of the food. It's just the way the food is being grown. And so we really want to get back to eating really healthy food for our kids. And so fruit bars and bottled juices are not cutting it as far as servings of fruits and veggies. Our kids need 6 to 8 servings of fruits and veggies every day, and a lot more of that needs to be veggies. So we actually want to have, for every serving of fruit, you want to have 3 or 4 servings of vegetables. You know, and so like, does this look good to you? Like, do you want your kids generating new tissues and cells from food like this? Right? So when my daughter was born, I was committed, like we were not going to let sugar get into her at all. And part of that was because while I was pregnant, you know how you have certain trouble with, like, you know, morning sickness, and it can be triggered by certain foods. And for me, it was anything sweet. I could not tolerate anything sweet. So I took that as a sign that I wanted to make sure I raised my daughter so that she didn't have any sugar at all. So what I discovered was it was much easier to do something 100% of the time than what I saw around me when people were doing it 90% of the time. And I'm talking about sugar. So when kids 90% of the time didn't get sugar, but 10% did, they were always looking for, when's the next time we get to have sugar? How about now? How about now? And they were always looking to sneak it. And like, I just saw it was hard on parents. And so for my daughter, we just had a rule. We don't eat sugar. And so if somebody offered something, we just asked, oh, does it have sugar in it? And if the answer was yes, oh, no, thank you. We don't eat sugar. We just don't, ever. And it made it so much easier in raising my daughter. I do want to say that there are some Vermont schools that have done dramatically better than the rest of the country, and actually are models for nutrition, where they have gardens right on site. And we have our local farmers that actually are donating food to schools. Our hospital, actually here in Burlington, has an exceptional cafeteria that has a lot of local foods from local farms in it. So we are more aware than most. But again, remember that there are 2 reasons why we get sick. And it's either toxic and deficient food choices are what are falling right in line with that. So toxicities and deficiencies, and that can come in the form of food. So how can you help? Well, make breakfast a priority. Get the really good nutrition in first thing in the morning. And so, you know, buy yourself some extra time in the morning by prepping the night before. That is going to go a long way. Or even prepping at the weekend to get ready for the whole week. It's a huge step that's going to immediately improve the health of your children. And you'll notice it immediately if you start to do it. Like, this year will be the healthiest year yet if you can get this, get your planning done. So make breakfast a priority, not packaged junk food, not cereal, but proteins, fats, and plants. So anytime that we are looking at our plate, we want to be asking, where is the plants? Where are the healthy proteins? Where are the healthy fats? And so another great thing to do is make smoothies. And I don't mean sugar bombs. I don't mean like all fruit. I mean, get the vegetables and the proteins and the fats in there. So again, asking yourself, when I'm making the smoothie, where are the plants? Where are the healthy fats? Where are the healthy proteins? And so you can pack a lot into the breakfast smoothies. And then you're going to pack their lunch. So instead of having the hot meal at the school, unless you're pretty sure it's one of those healthy schools, right? Then pack the leftovers that came from the home cooked dinner the night before. So they're getting healthy food at night, they're getting healthy food in the morning, and then you're packing their lunch with the leftovers of healthy food. No sodas allowed. That's a really bad way to get either the high fructose corn syrup or sugar in, which is going to affect their blood sugar, which is then going to affect their ability to concentrate, their energy levels. They're going to tank in the afternoon and be grumpy. And especially the diet sodas are really bad because they have all the excitotoxins in them that get the brain overstimulated and actually kill brain cells. Little to no sugar. Again, I'm going to recommend you just go with the no sugar, but if you've already started them on sugar, that can be a little tricky. So try to really minimize that. And then supplements. Again, supplements are supplementing a healthy diet, not in place of a healthy diet, but supplementing a healthy diet. And so probiotics are really important, especially if you can get them in the food, probiotic foods. like yogurt or kimchi or sauerkraut or kombucha, apple cider vinegar, right? Kefir, those are all great sources of probiotic foods. And if your kid is not getting a lot of those in, I think every day you want to get some of that in, then having a good probiotic supplement is good. Vitamin D is essential for the immune system and for growing bones and for growing brains. Fish oil is so important. And vitamin D also has an impact on the hormonal system, the emotions. And then, of course, fish oil is the omega-3s that we need for every cell membrane and for brain development. So really key. And then a really good multivitamin for your kid. Whole food sourced. I love the product Catalum. They actually have Catalum chewables. Watch out for those gummy-based vitamins. I know it may be easy to get them into your kids, but a lot of them have high fructose corn syrup and really bad ingredients in them, a lot of sugar in them too. All right. So again, if you're packing a lunch, it doesn't have to be a sandwich because it's a cold lunch. There are great thermoses that you can use that can actually keep soup hot and things like that. But for lunches, try to aim for at least 3 days a week to pack a lunch. And that's a good place to start. So we need to accept the fact that we can't always control what our kids eat, especially when they're not with us. So make it a goal to make sure that they eat healthy when they are with us. All right. So when it comes to supplements, again, supplements can help to reconcile the deficiencies that occur from not having the healthiest diet, but also the deficiencies that are coming from our food that actually may not be grown in the soils with the amount of robust nutrients in the soils. So the foods these days actually don't have the same level of nutrients that they did even 50, 75 years ago. And so even the best diet style is insufficient in the modern world. We actually do need to supplement certain things, just foundational things, because of the depleted soils and also because of the toxic burdens that we just can't avoid. And the pace of life, we can't avoid that anymore either. We have to keep up. Drug companies have trained us to look for the quick fix with a pill, but don't ever confuse a supplement pill with a drug medication pill. The more of the supplement tablets and capsules and chewables that you take, right, the less of the medications that you have to take. And so when we try to fix something with a pill, we're coming from the outside in design, and it's just overriding a certain body system to make a change in another one. The body is amazing, and supplements provide the building blocks so it can do what it needs to do. So we have supplements that will help to reconcile deficiencies. We have wellness supplements just to stay strong. And then when something happens where things are going sideways, there can be some additional tissue-specific nutrients that are the extra help that is from the outside in, but it's helping the inside-out health to express itself in a stronger way. So the supplements, again, omega-3 fatty acids that come from fish oil, probiotics, whole food-based multivitamin supplements, and then you can add in some vitamin C and some vitamin D. I also liked black elderberry extract is good. I like Conjuplex and Andrographis when the immune system is being challenged, that kind of thing. So I hope that you understand those pieces there. And again, remember that the probiotics are so important because they help to reestablish normal gut flora. Best to get it from foods, but if you're doing a probiotic supplement, it's good to change up that supplement. And remember that gut bacteria, good or bad, when it's out of balance, not only does the gut suffer, but overall health is going to suffer. 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And the gut flora will be affected by antibiotics, but also certain processed foods are going to also impact the microbiome of the gut. And it can take up to 2 years to reestablish the healthy gut flora. And then vitamin D, again, so important. There's mounting research that suggests that vitamin D deficiency may actually be a major cause of the flu. People with the lowest vitamin D levels reported having significantly more colds or cases of the flu. And we saw the same data show up with COVID as well. The people that had the lowest vitamin D levels had the worst cases of COVID. It not only boosts immunity, but it also cuts the rates of cold and flu. And to prevent influenza in one person, 40 people have to have a flu vaccine to just prevent one case of flu. And yet one case of the flu can be prevented for every 33 people taking vitamin D. So if you are surrounded by people that are taking vitamin D, that's actually protective for you. And if you are severely vitamin D deficient, you may need to supplement 10 times more in order to get the benefits. But when you are deficient, if you do supplement, that vitamin D supplement is 10 times more effective than the flu shot. So that's from some neat data that I came across. And I wanted to just share with you, as far as vitamin C goes, many times people ask how much. If your child is struggling with some sort of a immune system challenge, a cold or a flu, something like that, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys actually has a protocol that she recommends, and you can find it on her website. But she recommends powdered vitamin C, that not ascorbic acid, but sodium ascorbate. And she recommends taking between 3/4 teaspoon and 1.5 teaspoons and just putting it in liquid. And just every few hours, you're going to take it until there is bowel intolerance. And that means that the stools get loose. Then you know that you have maximized the amount of vitamin C. And then you just want to back off slightly and then just maintain during an acute portion of illness, and then reduce it as they get better. NAC is also good for bronchial coughs and acetylcysteine. And homeopathically speaking, Oscillo is a great homeopathic remedy to use at the first sign of symptoms. All right, so is this what you were thinking, right? Here we are. Unicorn Mom, a mythical creature who juggles it all and enjoys coffee, uninterrupted sleep, and a clean playroom. Okay, what's on the back of that t-shirt? Unicorn Mom. A mother who isn't perfect, enjoys alcohol, has a sense of humor, and couldn't care less what you think, right? All right. Humor goes a long way for our immune systems and for raising children. So what does some healthy meals look like? All right. These are some possible ideas for getting kids to eat healthier. It actually doesn't have to be hard. And you just want to make sure that you're going to the grocery store kind of often because you want to have fresh food, right? You don't want food that can sit on the counter for a few weeks and still be able to eat. That shelf life idea, it just tanks the nutrients that are in food for a longer shelf life. So just make it a family culture. Let your kids help in the kitchen. Talk to them about what it means to eat right. And again, always have that drum going of plants, fats, and protein. In every meal, where are the plants? Where's the healthy protein? Where's the healthy fat? Help them to recognize what does a healthy meal look like. And I know it's hard to feed our children proper nutrition, but if you make it a family culture, it's going to make it happen more easily. So when my daughter was born, as I said, no sugar, that really worked. And when it comes to ideas for lunches, you can do meat roll-ups. So instead of the bread and whatever you would put in between the bread, you can roll that up inside of a piece of meat, like a slice of turkey or a slice of roast beef or something like that. And then celery and almond butter is good, nuts. And there are even some potato chips that have healthy oils in them. Jackson's brand has the avocado oil. And also there's another one, Siete's, has some avocado oil based. So just avoid the inflammatory oils, which are all of the vegetable oils pretty much, except for avocado, coconut oil, olive oil. And then of course, butter is a fantastic fat to be consuming. For lunch, also leftovers, fruit, salad, and that sort of thing. And if your child is a picky eater, it can be a hard road to navigate, but just introduce one thing at a time that's a little bit new And remember that kids actually have to try something 8 times before it's valid that they really don't like it. They're designed to not like anything new. It's actually a survival mechanism, because if they are not being fed by their parents and they're just out exploring on their own, anything that's not something they're familiar with, it'd be better if they left that alone, unless their parents knew that it was good for them. So when you're introducing something new, make sure that that child tries it 8 times before they really are going to say no to it. All right. Morning strategies. So fuel. You want to make sure you're giving them the right fuel for the morning, and smoothies are a good way to do that. And they're really great for picky eaters, because you can put the plants, the protein, and the fat all in there, and it all gets into them. Movement. So before and after school is really, really great. Remember that if we really want to just get them started on the right foot in the morning. And so the typical American morning is rushed, stressed, skip breakfast, or grab something on the go. It's usually toxic and or deficient. So when we send our kids to school stressed out, tired, underfed, and understimulated, why do we wonder why they get sick all the time and have attention problems at school? So we need to slow down in the mornings and be more prepared for the day. One of my mentors said, in order to have a great life, first you need to master your week. In order to master your week, first you need to master your day. In order to master your day, first you must master your morning. And when it comes to kids, great days always start with a great morning, but great mornings start with a great night before, getting to bed on time. So having a good sleep protocol and a sleep culture is important as well. And then when you have that great morning, it fires up your kids for a great day. And again, great mornings start with a great night before. And our kids are going to remember the first minute we see them in the morning, the last minute before they walk out of sight. So there's something called the 2-minute rule. And basically it just means the last minute before they go to bed at night, you want to really just connect and focus with them. And then in the morning, the first minute when they wake up, connect and focus with them. And then when you're dropping them off at school or dropping them off at the bus, that last minute before you say goodbye, really connect with them. And that's the 2-minute rule, the first minute and the last minute, make sure that they really count. And then just leave them laughing when you when you say goodbye, so that you can get rid of their worries and their stress and just leave them on a good note. Now, as I said, the night before is important. So sleep is essential for health. You want to have a really good routine that you can try to just keep that same routine going. And that routine should include no screen time within at least 30 minutes of bedtime. Artificial light actually stimulates wakefulness. So in the bedroom, no tablets, no TV, no video games. Get them out of the bedroom so that when the child goes into their bedroom at night, they're just going to sleep. And darkness is really important, actually. Darkness is key. Night lights actually can affect vision and can lead to nearsightedness. And also it's light in the room that actually keeps our bodies in a little bit more of an awake state, so that sleep is not as deep as it should be. Kids, they need sleep for their health and for our sanity. So as far as kids go, children 3 to 5 years old, they need 10 to 13 hours of sleep every 24 hours. So that would include naps as well. And then children 6 to 12 years, they need 9 to 12 hours of sleep every 24 hours. Teens need 13 to 18. When they're 13 to 18 years old, they need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And remember that when it comes to teens, and actually even younger kids now too, most video games are not calming, and they usually are very aggressive and intense. And to play them before bedtime can actually contribute to them not being able to fall asleep. So, and studies actually show that the lack of sleep decreases our T cells and increases inflammatory cytokines, which is going to increase our risk of colds and flu. So quality of sleep really does have a huge impact on our quality of life. And sleep should be completely natural for humans, and especially for kids. I mean, if you just think about our ancestors, they didn't have night lights, right? When the sun went down, they went into the cave and went to sleep. When the sun came up, that was when they got up. And so being awake puts our bodies into a catabolic stage, so where we're in a breakdown stage. And when we're asleep, our bodies go into an anabolic stage, which is a build and repair stage. So we actually have a rhythm in our day, and we want to really reinforce that rhythm. I don't know if you know that overnight shift work is now actually classified as a class 2 carcinogen, cancer producing, just because you're not sleeping in the right rhythm. And the most important time to get really good sleep is from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's when the most healing happens, the deepest amount of sleep happens. So that means you want to be asleep at the very latest, going to bed at 9 p.m. so that you're deeply asleep by 10 p.m. And a good laugh and a long sleep are the two best cures for everything. Now, stress is a big deal. It is a big deal, and especially for teens these days as well, although it's affecting younger generation as well, the younger kids too. It's true that modern life is unnaturally stressful. It is so true. And do teens have more stress now than we did when we were kids? I think so, with the social stress, the technology stress. So we really do need to be helping our kids develop healthy habits when it comes to relieving stress. Our kids need to stop thinking that there's a pill for every ill. And the amount of kids and teens that are on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications is unbelievable. Over 6 million kids are on psychiatric medications, over 2 million on antidepressants, and 1.5 million on drugs for anxiety. So, man, we are just so over-medicated as a society, and to see it showing up in younger and younger kids is so disturbing. So let's support other ways to cope with stress, like nutrition, exercise, supplementation, affirmations, prayer, and a technique that I love. It's called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. I have another whole workshop on that, but you can investigate that, and that's a fantastic strategy. I actually used that with my daughter. When she was a baby, I would do this EFT tapping. It's learning to tap on the endpoints of the acupuncture meridians that help to turn stress switch off, the stress switch off in 30 seconds. And it is phenomenal how it works. So when my daughter was, couldn't fall asleep, I would do a little tapping with her. When she was upset about something, I'd do a little tapping with her. And, before you knew it, she knew all the points. I mean, when she was like 7 years old, she was teaching other people how to do the tapping technique to manage stress. It's once you learn what all the points are, it's great. And there's a specific book called Gorilla Thumps and Bear Hugs that is a fantastic book to teach kids how to do the EFT tapping. I highly recommend that. Once again, diet is huge here. So getting more involved in sports and other school activities to keep active, taking them to the gym with you, just developing healthy habits at a young age to relieve stress. And just knowing that there are lots of different tools that we can use: exercise, diet, sleep, meditation, EFT tapping, all those things. Physical literacy, which means movement, right? When we think of, emotional literacy, or, even just reading literacy, right? We want our kids to have a high level of this physical literacy, because when you're moving, you're eliminating wastes and toxins, you're increasing circulation with your white blood cells working more effectively. It moves the fluid that's in between the cells, the interstitial fluid, increases lymphatic flow, reduces stress hormone production. And remember, kids are supposed to move before they start learning. They need a morning routine where they're moving, because it actually helps the brain. There's a substance called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps to build connections in the brain, and that is how we learn things. Again, disease is what harbors in stagnant tissues. So movement is so, so key. There's a book called Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise in the Brain, which the author talks about how important it is to move the body in order to have better learning and better recall. And actually, I was telling my daughter, I was doing this talk this evening, and my daughter is studying the book Spark in one of her courses at college right now. And so she is learning about this as well. And she actually is intentionally using strategic exercise during her day to help her retain more in her studies. All right. And so one other thing too is that Osteoporosis later in life may be caused by kids not developing peak bone mass in childhood. And that peak bone mass comes from stressing the bones, gravitational stress, from playing hard. So exercise, or not enough of it, can affect just about everything in a kid's day. How they sleep, their energy levels, their mood, and of course their weight and physical health. So again, it's key for their learning, their brain development. And there are groups actually known as the National Association of Physical Literacy that talk about the importance of teaching kids to move while they're young, so that movement is a part of their lives when they grow up as well. So just like schools are teaching math literacy, reading literacy, they can also teach physical literacy, the basics of movement, so they can stay active for life. And you really want to strive for at least 60 minutes of movement per day for kids. Posture is another part of movement and physical stresses. So posture is the window to the spine. And backpacks actually are something we have to pay a lot of attention to. Carrying heavy, improperly loaded backpacks day after day, year after year, can cause problems for the child, both now, today, and in the future. And according to U.S. Consumer Reports Safety Commission, at least in 2017, at least 7,800 kids were treated for backpack-related injuries. Now, they weren't all related to the spine. There were other injuries as well, but still, not using the backpack properly can lead to injuries. And so if you have a kiddo, then I want you to just really take this all, take these details down. So the backpack should be no more than 10 to 15% of their body weight, not more than 10 to 15%. And so actually, you know, like weigh your kid and then weigh that backpack, and you really want to look at that. And especially for those 6th to 9th graders, man, something happens during those years where those backpacks get way, way overloaded. It's amazing how heavy they are. Make sure that the kids are wearing both shoulder straps, not just slinging it over one shoulder. And if they do have a waist strap, they should actually wear that too. That can help to distribute the weight properly. You want to pack the items so that the heaviest objects are closest to the spine, in the center, near the center of gravity. So again, think about how the backpack is going to be worn and get the heaviest things closest to the spine. And then you want to cinch the straps up so that the bottom of the backpack is going to rest right along the lumbar spine, right along the low back. The best sized backpack for the child should be the length of their torso. And so think about all those as key pieces here. And remember, once a week, you want to clean out the junk. Otherwise, you know, it's just building up. And check for any red marks on the shoulders, which are an indication that it may be too heavy or they may be wearing it improperly. All right, now tech neck syndrome is another piece of posture that we have to pay attention to, because it can actually lead to severe headaches, back pain, neck pain, developmental disorders, and more. There's something called digital dementia, which actually was a term coined by a neuroscientist, Manfred Spitzer, which describes how an overuse of digital technology can result in the breakdown of cognitive abilities. This is a real thing. And there's something about the stooped posture that's part of that. So, you know, what is the cure for the tech neck syndrome? Look up is the cure. Look up. And so I want to share with you this video, which is called Look Up America. It's a fantastic site. Please go check the site out. But let me now just stop the share so I can switch it over. And I'm going to bring up the one that I want, which is this one.
Facebook started as a great way for us to connect with our friends, family, and things we like the most. But things changed. The recent wave of ads, spam, fake news, and other low-quality posts have divided us, instead of bringing us closer together. But it doesn't have to be that way. Health professionals have identified 5 steps we can all take right now to take control of our newsfeed and make Facebook a healthy, happy, and inspiring place to be. Step 1. Unfollow what makes you unhealthy. When you see a post from someone you're no longer interested in seeing posts from, simply unfollow. You can still remain friends, but you don't have to be bothered by their annoying posts anymore. Tired of political rants, braggy friends, your ex's selfies, and that one person that constantly complains? Unfollow. It's your newsfeed. You're in control. Step 2. Like and follow what makes you healthier. Subscribe to your tribes to fill your feed with what inspires you. Would you like to wake up inspired daily? Connect with people and pages that inspire, inform, and improve your life. And make sure to set your favorite pages to see first, so you'll always get the positive content you're most interested in first. Step 3. Look up. Too many of us are constantly tethered to our computers, phones, and tablets from the moment we wake up till we're ready to go to sleep. For better health, let's remember that life is better when you're looking up. Take a mobile moment every 20 minutes. Look 20 feet away for at least 20 seconds. Parents can set a good example for kids. This simple idea can improve your body, your mind, and your overall health. Step 4. Get connected and engage with your tribes. By joining tribes that inspire you, you'll stay connected to people, ideas, and action steps to help you live a happier, healthy life. Like and comment on things that make life better for all of us. Your engagement amplifies great ideas. Step 5. Be kind, be generous, and share the love. Together, we can use Facebook as a tool for good. When you find something inspiring, interesting, funny, or just makes you feel good, be generous and share it. Together, let's use Facebook to make the world a better place.
All right. So let me just bring you back to my PowerPoint. And of course, this applies to not just Facebook, but also it's going to apply to Instagram and all the different ones there are, TikTok, Twitter, and you know what they are, the ones that you use. So here, let me just bring this up again here. Share the screen. There we are. All right. Let's resume our slideshow. There. So this is all about posture. Technique we talked about and posture. So now's a good time for a posture break. So this is my favorite posture break exercise. We call it the life extension exercises, and the acronym is YWLT. So you can see to the very left, the Y shape when you're standing and you're holding your arms stretched up out to the side and above you. And you're going to hold that for 20 seconds, taking a few breaths as you do. Then the next position is the W. So here you're going to try to put your elbows right into your back pocket. So you're going to stretch them down towards your back pocket. It's going to have you squeezing your scapula, your wing bones together. And then do that one for 20 seconds with a few breaths. The third one is L for love. You will love this. So the L is where your elbows are bent with your arms to the side, elbows bent out. And to do this well, you're going to open the arms up so the hands are right in the same plane of the body. And basically, if you are staring straight off into space, you can wiggle your fingers and you won't see them in your peripheral vision. If you can see them, you want to keep stretching your hands back behind you as far as you can. And the final position is the T. You will love this, the T. And again, you're just stretching your arms out. Again, if you wiggle your fingers, you want to not be able to see them in your peripheral vision as you stare straight out at the horizon. So just like you brush your teeth twice a day so that your teeth will last you your whole life, the life extension exercises, we're going to recommend you do those twice a day as well. And why not just do them right after you finish brushing your teeth? And that way you'll make sure you get them in twice a day, every day. All right. Now, posture is important, but we also want to understand, what does a good posture look like? And if there are signs of there being distortions in the posture, we want to catch those early and address them as early as we can in our kids. So with your kids, you can even take their shirts off and look at them from behind and look at the scapula, the wing bones, and make sure things look symmetrical. Look at the contours of their spine as they stand. do they have an upright posture? Here we want to see, as an example, the center of the head or the ear should be right over the center of the shoulder, which is right over the center of the hips, which is right over the center of the knees. And then if we could see her ankles, right over the center of the ankles. That's what we're looking for when someone is standing upright. When we look at them from behind or from in front, we want to see that the ears are level and the bottoms of the ears are level on either side. We want to see the shoulders are level and the hips are level. And if we see that they're not, then that is a sign that there actually could be some distortion happening in the spine. So your posture is your window to the spine. And another test you can do is have your child stand on one leg with their eyes open and then have them close their eyes. And children should have very good proprioception so that they can easily stand on one leg with their eyes closed. And if they start to fall to the side, then that may be a sign that they have some distortion, especially right at the very top of the spine. The brainstem is where the control centers are for posture. And so if they've banged their head or even had subluxations caused by other types of stresses, then that could actually relate to and lead to something called altered proprioception, which is knowing where the body is in space, the brain being aware of where the body is in space. One other thing to look at is if a child standing with equal weight on both feet looking straight ahead, is their head centered or are they leaning off to one side? That would be another aspect of the posture to look at. So again, just understanding how to detect areas of concern by really looking closely here, and then making sure your kids get checked if you feel there is anything that is concerning. Here's an example of somebody in the practice. This little girl, she was leaning off to the side, like what I just said. She was leaning off to the right. And then after she was getting adjusted regularly, she was centered, exactly centered. And then here her head was leaning forward. That's a stress posture when the head is carried forward. And here her head is right up over her shoulders as she's standing after she had been adjusted over a period of time. So that's a success story there. And that means as she's growing and developing, she's now growing and developing with a better posture, which means a healthier spine, which means a healthier nervous system. So the most common reasons that children visit our practice are these ones I've listed here: ear infections, asthma, constipation, bedwetting, headaches, leg cramps, colic or digestive problems, allergies or skin conditions, and wellness. Wellness is a big reason why children come into the practice. Many parents want to have their kids checked for subluxation and then just have them corrected as soon as possible and not waiting for symptoms to show up. But all of these conditions that show up as symptoms, you'll notice that we don't really have pain down here the way a lot of adults, they would have pain as an indicator of, oh no, I have to do something about this. I better go get my spine checked. And that's the most common symptom for adults. But we know that what you feel is only 10% of the nervous system's job, the feeling to detect pain. And so we really want to be measuring function with the other 90% of the nervous system. And so we really do want to correct subluxations before they cause pain, before it becomes a crisis. So if children are experiencing body signals like these, their nervous system is already being affected. And it is very troublesome to me that I hear parents tell me that their medical doctor, the pediatrician, told them, oh, their kid's just going to grow out of those ear infections or grow out of the colic. But no, they don't grow out of those things. They grow into sensory problems, motor delays, gut trouble. And so these symptoms we see as children, they just change into different symptoms later in life if the subluxations are going uncorrected. So let's just review the concepts here. The body is self-healing and self-regulating. The nervous system is the master controller of the body. When there's interference in the nervous system, the body can no longer heal and regulate properly. And misalignments within the spine, which we call subluxations, are correlated to interferences in the nervous system. So chiropractors, our job is to work to remove this interference by adjusting the spine and removing subluxations. So does it make sense then how the body signals that we just looked at could be coming from a condition in the spine called subluxation? Well, what exactly is subluxation? Let's dive deeper into this and unpack it. So subluxation is when there's a macro or a micro trauma that causes damage to the spine and the connective tissues, the ligaments, the muscles, and the tendons, your spinal joints, and it can also happen in extremities as well. These all can become misaligned, causing soft tissue damage, which then leads to inflammation. And then that results in nerve irritation. So the most significant thing to recognize is that trauma can create nerve system stress and interference in the communication between the brain and the body, which then starts to change the information that's going to and from the body to and from the brain. And so if we're interfering with healthy function and healing, this is a condition that's known as vertebral subluxation. So practice saying that, subluxation, right? So this is what happens. You have traumas or bad habits, and it goes through this. Now, when you do have the nerve irritation, there's chemistry, pain chemistry is released, and that can further irritate the nerves in a kind of a downward spiral. So your smart body, if it is getting nerve irritation and any little movement of that joint is now just irritating those nerves, then you can expect to see the body try to strap that joint down with muscle spasms. That's your smart body trying to stabilize that joint. And when that happens, there's no longer movement in that joint. Now, that's a good short-term strategy that the body is using. However, the discs, which are in between the bones, they only get their nutrients in and their toxins pumped out, similar to the way a sponge works. So we have to squeeze that sponge to get the water out, and then we have to release it so that the water can get sucked back in. And that's exactly how a disc works, because it doesn't have a really good blood supply that is carrying toxins out and nutrition in. And so that's called imbibition, when we can squeeze down and release to get fluids in and out. And so when we strap down that joint and we lose that imbibition, now the disc over time can start to deteriorate, and that will cause degenerative changes to then begin and accelerate. Now, when there's joint fixation, something else that happens is that all the mechanoreceptors that are in each joint, these are the nerves that are firing whenever we move a joint. And when they fire, they send signaling right up to the brain. And the brain takes that signal and is able to locate where the body is in space from all the different ways that we are moving and getting those mechanoreceptors to fire. And so when the brain takes all that information of all the mechanoreceptors firing and sending signaling to the brain, it allows the brain to, it's like a GPS system. It allows the brain to locate exactly where the body is in space, which means then the brain is able to control the body in a very accurate way. So when we lose that motion in the joint, the brain no longer gets signaling from that joint, and it starts to lose track of its sense of where the body is in space. And when that happens, the brain will go into a stress response, kind of like when you're at the fair and your child suddenly lets go of your hand and you're suddenly thinking, where in this crowd is my child? Where is my child? And you go into a stress response, and most likely you're going to stress out everybody around you because you're going to be yelling out, where's my child, right? So the brain actually will go into a global stress response when it starts to lose that sense of proprioception. And then that can drive more inflammation in the body and can lead to chronic illness, as well as can cause acceleration of the degenerative changes that may occur. So the subluxation is a progressive complex condition, but we can catch it early in children so that it doesn't lead to these degenerative changes that we'd find in adults. And remember, that's the goal, because we only get one spine. And so what are you going to do if your spine wears out, right? They don't have spinal replacements anymore. And they definitely don't have brain replacements. So the brain's in charge of running everything, but it needs to be protected. The nervous system needs to be protected by the spine and the skull. All right. So there are many things that can cause subluxations. It turns out that the science is showing us that it may be the birth process itself, which may be responsible for some of the first subluxations that occur in babies and children. And Dr. Gutmann in Germany, he found that as much as 80% of children under the age of 1 have subluxations in the very top of the spine, the upper cervical area, the atlas or C1 vertebra, and C2 as well. And that he figured that that may have come from the birth process. So that is one of the ways that we have the earliest traumas to our spine. Even a healthy birth process can be a stressful event. And so there are the big events, you know, babies, 50% of children are either fall or are dropped on their head in their first year of life as well, because the head is the biggest part here. But there are other traumas as well, including micro traumas. So bumps and falls that occur, learning to sit up, crawl and walk, sports injuries, accidents, poor sleeping positions. And then we get into the tech age, and that's starting younger and younger in children these days, with parents giving them iPads to occupy them. And you can just see their head go right down as they're looking at the iPad on their lap. And there goes their posture. So just at the time when toddlers are just starting to take their first steps, their head has to be right over the center of gravity. Their best posture is going to happen when they start to move around, because if their head is forward, their head's going to fall on the ground. So we love seeing the posture of toddlers because it has to be good posture at that stage. But it's so despairing and frustrating for me to see parents that are putting their toddlers in front of screens and just tanking that beautiful posture just when it's starting to get a start. So it is so important that we do reconcile all these different bumps and falls and tech stress, because it's not always the big stuff, the big accidents and traumas. It's more the repetitive micro traumas that can create the subluxations in the spine. So sure, kids aren't fragile. You know, we've heard that said, they'll just be fine. And thank goodness our kids are resilient and their bodies can heal themselves. But when no trauma ever gets reconciled, eventually it is going to start leading to bodies breaking down. So I hope that's starting to make some sense now that you're getting it. Okay, so we're saying that subluxations in the spine cause nerve interference that can actually cause your child to demonstrate body signals or symptoms of dis-ease. So does it make sense now that problems we have as adults could have started way back when we were kiddos? And that's why families in our practice, they like to get their kids checked right away. And of course, you know, did you know the nervous system and the immune system have a very extensive relationship? Many people who get regular chiropractic care experience less sick days. They recover faster when they're getting adjusted during illness. That's a very common thing that parents recognize when their kids are getting adjusted regularly. The two most common comments I hear are improvements in behavior and improvements in immune system function. So you know my story. My story started with my immune system and my strep throat and getting adjusted and getting healthy faster. And then the next experience I had was my hormonal system, again, being controlled from the nervous system. And so I got my story ending in a happy way where my body did start to work right. And I was able to have my lovely daughter, who's now going to college herself. And you know, we've grown her with all these principles of having a healthy spine and a healthy nervous system. So what are your next steps? If you're anything like me, you want the best health outcomes for yourself, but also your family, of course, and your kids. So I'm assuming you're watching this exactly because of that reason, that you want to be able to raise your kids in the healthiest way. So here are some action steps to remind you of, again, just as a review. Check your child's posture, look closely at it, and watch what posture they hold throughout the day. Do you find them oftentimes hunching forward and slouching in their posture? You know, maybe they can stand up straight and they look good while you're watching, but when nobody's looking, you're seeing them lose that healthy posture. That in and of itself is a reason for them to get their spines checked. Also, remember, review and implement the backpack guidelines for your kiddos. Also, check out the Look Up America mobile minutes and just check out that website and all their guidance. Remember the nutritional guidelines and supplements that we talked about, the best practices for sleep. But most importantly, make sure that you're getting your kids' spines checked. And we would love to, if you don't already have your kids' spines checked and you're curious about it, please do reach out to us. We would love to help out. And if you are watching this and you would like to have your child come in to get checked, just send us a text that says Healthy Kids Consult. And if you send it to our number, 802-985-9850, Healthy Kids Consult, then my team will reach out to you and we'll get you right into our schedule. So thank you so much for your time and attention. And I look forward to seeing you here in the office and seeing how we can help. All right. Thanks, everybody. And I look forward to meeting you all soon.